All right, welcome back in, everybody, to Sports and Money. It is a privilege, as always, to have you on board. I'm Ben Parker. Doing a quick 3 and out here on the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl with the 49ers. We're just a few days away from the Super Bowl actually kicking off, and I know all of you on both sides are very excited, of course, as always, to get your team back in the Super Bowl. This is specifically aimed on the Kansas City side, and we have a lot of Kansas City followers here on this channel, so we appreciate you jumping in. I'm not going to go deep into X's and O's and technical analysis and stuff like that. I do think that this is one of those Super Bowls, and it's modern NFL, right? But I do think this is one of those Super Bowls that lends itself to a lot more moving parts for both teams than you might see in some Super Bowls. I don't necessarily feel like this is a Super Bowl in which one player is simply going to overwhelm or dominate or just really exude their presence. It feels like there's a lot of moving parts on both teams. Bit more of a chess match, and I really feel like that's the direction the Super Bowl is going to go. So we'll see. It reminds me to some degree, of the Patriots-Eagles Super Bowl from a few seasons ago. It won't be that high scoring. It won't even be close, but still, you had a lot of things moving around for both teams there on both sides of the football that really made it hard to kind of pick out one or two things. But I've got 3 things I'm going to list here, just very simple, kind of fun things here for the game that I would love to kind of see happen if we're looking for a Kansas City Chiefs victory here. And I'll start off with number 3, and I'll work my way up to number 1. Number 3 for me, again, obvious, but get the ball to Travis Kelce, especially early in the football game. Chiefs do not have a lot of advantages here on offense. Patrick Mahomes is one advantage. Andy Reid is another advantage. But Travis Kelce is the one guy who really is an advantage. I love Pacheco, and they're going to hand the ball to Pacheco, and they should, and it will be important. But the key really here is getting the ball to Travis Kelce, and especially early in the game. Travis is a guy who tends to, if you let him get deeper in the game, and he hasn't gotten a lot of looks, hasn't got a lot of targets, so the game isn't particularly going well, he starts getting a little irritated and a little frustrated, and that competitive fire starts to kick in. Sometimes that helps, sometimes it hinders. So for Kansas City here, I think it's really obvious. I'm not stating anything deep here. Get the ball to Travis Kelce early and often. Make sure he's in the game flow continuously throughout, especially the first half. And again, if you can get him a score, again, that seems to make a huge difference here for this version of the Kansas City Chiefs, who I don't think are going to score a lot of points. No offense intended there, but Chiefs fans, you know your team. I think they've only crossed the 30-point mark. Heck, I think they've even only crossed the 27-point mark twice this year, something like that. So it's not an explosive team. Don't expect to see them score a lot of points necessarily in the Super Bowl, unless they can catch some turnovers. So if we're just looking at the offensive production, if they catch 24, 27 points, that's going to be probably about where they kind of top out at more than likely. You want to make sure Travis Kelce gets the ball early and often, and the more he touches it, the more likely he is to score. Of course, that just really goes without saying. So nothing deep there, but I do think that's the key on the Kansas City football side, Kansas City offense side. Mahomes to Kelce, Mahomes to Kelce. We've seen it before, and I think we're going to see it again in the Super Bowl. Number 2 for me, if you're the Kansas City Chiefs, I really want to see them limit Deebo Samuels. We haven't necessarily seen that the 49ers struggle to win if Deebo is on the field and doesn't have a big day. But what we have seen is if they're struggling to get the ball to him in easy ways, if teams are limiting how efficient those targets are, if instead of going 5 out of 5 on targets, it's more like 4 out of 8 or something like that, that tends to clog up the 49ers offense. And what we've especially seen is that the 49ers lose a lot when Deebo's not even on the field at all. And what we saw in the first half against Detroit was Detroit did a pretty good job, really all things considered, of limiting how many touches Deebo got at all and how effective those touches were. That's not the only thing going on in that Lions game. But in the first half of that game, Deebo Samuel, I think, had three catches, 3 plays, 3 touches, if you will, where he got the football, 3 or 4. And the Lions really did a pretty good job. And the Lions don't have a good defense. They really don't. It's not a good defense at all. But the Lions did a good job in the first half. But boom, right off the bat, at the start of that second half, you saw the 49ers starting to get hooked up, and they were starting to heat up, and they were getting the ball to Deebo Samuels. And so it really does seem to really get their engine running smoothly when Deebo's getting a lot of touches, and especially when it's through the air, really seems to be getting it hooked up. So for me, if I'm Kansas City, and listen, a lot of moving parts here, and I'm not going to get too deep here on a technical deep dive, but I'm going to put Trent McDuffie locked in on Deebo Samuels the whole game. Wherever he goes, Deebo goes. And if I'm handing Deebo off to somebody, hopefully I'm handing him off to L'Jarius Sneed. I really want to harass the heck out of Deebo Samuels. And listen, some people will say, what are you going to do about Ayuk? Well, we got people that can at least give him a hard time. Kittle, same thing. What about Christian McCaffrey? I feel like Christian McCaffrey's probably going to get his yards, probably going to get his touchdown. I feel like Christian McCaffrey's probably going to have a pretty solid day here no matter what, whether the 49ers win or lose, Chiefs win or lose. Figure McCaffrey's probably going to have a pretty solid day because he almost always does. And because Kansas City really hasn't been that good against the run this year. We know that. Everybody knows that. Per game or per yardage play, they really are not very good at stopping the run, so I wouldn't expect them to just all of a sudden magically stop McCaffrey. But also, we haven't necessarily seen that McCaffrey's absence or McCaffrey's lack of production has really kept the 49ers from winning consistently, and we have seen it from Deebo Samuels. So I'm going to do everything I can, starting with putting Trent McDuffie on Deebo Samuels to really hinder. I won't stop it all, but just to really hinder how often he can get his hands on the football and how much yak yardage he can get once he's actually caught the football. So I'm going to lock in Trent McDuffie on him. And I'm also going to ask the linebackers to really try to keep track of where, and listen, there's a lot of moving parts here. We're going to try to keep track of where Deebo is and really clog in those passing lanes where Brock Purdy is going to want to just get these kind of easy mesh routes, crossing routes, all that stuff to Deebo. We're really going to try to limit that. And what that's going to do, hopefully, is push Deebo Samuels out to the edges, where a very good Chiefs secondary can hopefully use the out of bounds as another weapon against Deebo Samuels. It won't be easy. Nothing here in the Super Bowl is. But that's what I would love to see them do, is really limit Deebo Samuels. Number one for me, and this is, again, it's going to be obvious and it's not easy, but this is what I would love to see if Kansas City is going to win, and that is get an early lead. This entire season, this is not true of past Chiefs teams, but this entire season, we've really seen that if Kansas City can get the lead early, they can really control the game. It allows them to kind of relax. It allows them to run the football, even if the yards per carry from Pacheco aren't up. It still allows the Chiefs to kind of keep handing off the football. It allows Andy Reid to kind of mix and match on offense. It allows Mahomes to not have to force the football to receivers who might not catch it anyway. It really allows the Chiefs' offense to breathe. And again, we've mentioned this. Chiefs offense, not explosive. Don't necessarily count on them exploding for lots of points in the second half if they're behind. So you really want to see the Chiefs catch that early lead. How do you do that? Well, I think you're aggressive on the first quarter, on your drives, on your possessions in the first quarter. I think you're aggressive. I think if you get a 4th and short, you go for it. If it's not, way backed up in your own territory. I feel like you're going to do as much as you can. You're going to pull out your best plays on that first possession, and even on that second possession, you're going to script your best plays to try to get that early lead and tilt the pressure back on Brock Purdy, back on Kyle Shanahan as much as you can. And that Super Bowl pressure, no matter how good you are, is going to be felt. So you really want to tilt that pressure back on San Francisco. So you get really aggressive on all your early plays, and try to run your best stuff. And I do think it's important that Kansas City gets that early lead. We saw it against Baltimore. We saw that the Ravens struggled. Even at home, we saw that the Ravens struggled working from behind. And we've seen that for most of the season from Kansas City. It feels like we're going to know pretty quick if Kansas City, and I expect them to win, but it feels like if Kansas City is ahead early, they've got a much better chance to control this game and win than if they're behind early. And now Mahomes is having to press, and Mahomes is having to push. Not that he's not capable. He certainly is. He just doesn't have the supporting cast this year to do it. So, again, that's really obvious. But getting an early lead is what I would love to see Kansas City do here as well. That's our 3 and out. Really appreciate you listening, as always. Check us out. We've got more stuff coming out all off season. Hope you enjoy the Super Bowl. Have a great one. Bye.